You can use LLMs to help you debug. They are really, really good for this. What you'll often want to do is just take the error message output that you get. Like if you're using PyTorch and you have not gotten a tensor mismatch thing where it's just telling you the shape of this going into that just doesn't match and boom, you're dead. You're a very lucky person because I get those all the time. And those plague the students very often of my other class that I teach, which is applications of deep neural networks with PyTorch. So in this part, we're going to take a look at how you might use a large language model to help you debug. So I am going to go ahead and run this part and just get it loaded. You need to have your OpenAI API key defined. I recommend putting that in secrets if you're using Google Colab. Okay, that's good to go. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the conversation agent that we did before. And again, you can, if you want to, you can certainly use the playground. Put your system prompt in for any coding standards or other things that you want. And you can request the code generation here. The problem that'll happen here, though, is the code generation doesn't tend to format as nicely. Now, going to ChatGPT itself, it does work quite well. So I am going to run this. Okay, it's defined our conversational. And we're going to do a buggy pi approximator. Approximate the value of pi. You're basically, think of a dartboard on the wall, on a perfectly square wall where the circle is set inside of that. And you throw darts. Well, the ratio of how many darts go into the bullseye versus outside of it, that lets you know pi. And the more darts you throw, the better of an approximation you get. And that's what we're going to do. So I create this, and I am going to use xrange. And xrange, if you've ever taken old Python code that was written for Python 2 and tried to run it in Python 3, you've probably seen xrange. Xrange used to be a really efficient way to do range. It's simply not needed anymore, and it will give you an error. So if you run this, it's going to even say name error, xrange is not defined. So when I'm using LLMs to help me debug, what I will often do is just go in, copy this error, and put it right into the prompt so that we can ask it about it. I am trying to debug the following code. This is the prompt that I usually use for this. I give it the code that I'm trying to debug. Sometimes you can just give it the error message and it'll give you advice, but if you give it your code, it's going to actually modify your code for you. And I actually introduced another bug into this that I didn't even really... So here we put in this conversation. This is the complete prompt, and it says, it looks like you're using Python 3, where xrange has been replaced by range. There's also a mistake in your condition to check the point is inside the circle. I put in a second bug there. I thought I was going to do this in 2 steps, but the LLMs are really smart. It knows what I'm trying to do, and it also fixes other bugs that it's found. So it fixes both bugs. There was an error in my formula, and it gives me some notes, and it basically, from that prompt that I put together, it is able to fix not only the bug that I had, but the hidden bug that I was going to show, either as an example of how it found both of them or as a secondary part of the conversation. Then we can test the code, and the approximator now properly approximates pi to 3.14 and so on and so on. So it's quite good for that. Another thing that it can be very useful for is if you're looking at complicated code that you just do not understand initially, you can ask for it to explain the code. So here I give it some code and I ask it to explain it. So as you take my class, you'll see that I give you a submit function. And this is actually the old version of my submit function, but before I had it support multiple courses. But nonetheless, this is a somewhat complicated function. There's a lot going on in here. And I basically tell it to take this function and explain it. And it gives you a nice response. It tells you it's doing imports, source file validation, encoding the source file, data handling, HTTP request, and it takes it. So it gives you kind of an overview of how each of these pieces was actually working for this particular function. It doesn't seem to understand exactly what it's for. I mean, this function is basically what you use in this course to submit your assignments, but it does figure out that basically I am taking Python source code, I'm base64 encoding it, so it's like a encoding format that I can send it nicely over HTTP. And I do the same thing with your output. And then my program that is running on the other side that you don't see, it's not this code, basically checks it and lets you know if you're going to do well when I actually go to grade these for real. So it's kind of an auto grader. All right, thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe to the channel and give it a like if this was helpful for you. Thank you very much.